adequate notice having been given pursuant to the New Jersey Open Public Meeting Act in the following manner. First, on December 6th, 2019, a copy of said notice was mailed to the Asbury Park Press and the Tri-Town News. Second, on December 6, 2019, a copy of said notice was hand-delivered to the clerk of the Township of Howell. Third, on December 6, 2019, said notice was posted in the office of the Planning Board and on the bulletin board in the Howell Township Municipal Building, 4567 Route 9, Howell Township, New Jersey. In accordance with the Fire Prevention Code and your safety, please be advised that this facility is designed with 2 emergency exits, which are on your right at the front and rear of the meeting room. Furthermore, smoking is not permitted in the municipal building. Please take note that this meeting is being videotaped for possible future broadcast on Howell Township TV 77. You're up.
Okay, we're going to have the oaths of office. Okay, so anyone who needs to be sworn in, if you can stand up.
Ron, can we have them over there so maybe we could take a picture? Guys, why don't you stand up?
Right in the middle of the dais there. There should be 5 of them.
Okay, if you could raise your right hand. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, smile. Okay, I state your name. Do solemnly swear or affirm that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey, and that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same and to the governments established in the United States and in this state under the authority of the people. So help me God. I do further solemnly swear or affirm that I will impartially and justly perform all of the duties of the office of Planning Board member according to the best of my ability. So help me God. Congratulations.
Could I ask everybody to please sign their oath and get it back to me this evening? Take the roll call. We'll now take the roll call. Mr. Dorado has been excused. Mr. Husser?
Here.
Chief Kudrick?
Here.
Mr. Bozovic?
Here.
Mr. Nicastro?
Present.
Mr. Schneider?
Here.
Mr. Seaman?
Here.
Mr. Tannenhouse has been excused. Mr. Leggio?
Here.
Mr. Everett's been excused. And Deputy Mayor O'Donnell.
Here.
We have a quorum. Will we all please stand now for the Pledge of Allegiance?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Does the board need to go into executive for the reorg?
Yes.
Yes, please.
I need to read the executive resolution. Whereas Title 10, Chapter 4, Section 13 of the New Jersey Revised Statutes requires that the public shall not be excluded from any meetings of a public body unless a resolution authorizing such exclusion is adopted at a public meeting. And whereas the Planning Board of the Township of Howell has determined that such a closed meeting is required to discuss certain matters which are exempted from consideration with the public in attendance under New Jersey Revised Statutes 10:4-12, namely personnel. Now therefore be it resolved by the Planning Board of the Township of Howell that the public shall be excluded from the next portion of this meeting, and that the Planning Board will reconvene in public session thereafter. Be it further resolved that minutes will be kept of the meeting in closed session, and the time and circumstances under which the discussion conducted in closed session can be disclosed to the public cannot be determined at this time. Do I need a motion for executive?
Motion to go in executive.
Do I have a second? Mr. Husser?
Yes.
Chief Kudrick?
Yes.
Mr. Bozovic?
Yes.
Mr. Nacastro?
Yes.
Mr. Schneider?
Yes.
Mr. Seaman? Mr. Leggio?
Yes.
And Deputy Mayor O'Donnell.
Yes.
Motion carries. The board will now, reconvene in executive, and we'll be back when they're done.
Members of the public, planning board members, just to help to temporarily facilitate until we have our new members, I'll just take a motion for chairman for the year 2020 at the planning board.
Brian Tenenhouse.
Second.
Okay, can we take a roll?
Motion by Mr. Nacastro and a second by Mr. Schneider. Mr. Husser?
Yes.
Chief Kudrick?
Yes.
Mr. Bozovic?
Yes.
Mr. Nacastro?
Yes.
Mr. Schneider?
Yes.
Mr. Seaman?
Yes.
Mr. Leggio?
Yes.
And Deputy Mayor O'Donnell.
Yes.
Okay, and just for members of the public, Mr. Tannenhouse is not here tonight, which shows you what happens when you don't show up to a meeting. So we will now take a motion for vice chair.
Nick Huza.
Second?
I have a motion by Mr. Nacastro and a second by Deputy Mayor O'Donnell for Mr. Husser. Mr. Husser?
Yes.
Chief Kudrick?
Yes.
Mr. Bozovic?
Yes.
Mr. Nacastro?
Yes.
Mr. Schneider?
Yes.
Mr. Seaman?
Yes.
Mr. Leggio?
Yes.
And Deputy Mayor O'Donnell.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, Vice Chair Husser, as Chairman Tannenhouse is not here tonight, you will chair the meeting tonight. I will turn it over to you. Essentially, if you could ask for a motion for secretary for 2020.
Sure. For the reorganization, do I have a motion for the nomination for secretary?
I'll nominate Eileen Urbano.
Second.
I have a motion by Deputy Mayor O'Donnell, a second by Chief Kudrick. Mr. Husser?
Yes.
Chief Kudrick?
Yes.
Mr. Bozovic?
Yes.
Mr. Nacastro?
Yes.
Mr. Schneider?
Yes.
Mr. Seaman?
Yes.
Mr. Leggio?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor O'Donnell.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, do I have a nomination for consulting attorney?
I'll make a motion for Ron Cachero.
I will second that.
I have a motion by Mr. Schneider and a second by Chief Kudrick for Mr. Cachero. Chief Kudrick?
Yes.
Mr. Bozovic?
Yes.
Mr. Nacastro?
Yes.
Mr. Schneider?
Yes.
Mr. Seaman?
Yes.
Mr. Leggio?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor O'Donnell?
Yes.
And Vice Chairman Husser.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you for your confidence.
Do I have a nomination for consulting engineer?
Make a motion to appoint CME as consulting engineer.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Schneider and a second by Mr. Seaman for CME. Chief Kudrick?
Yes.
Mr. Bozovic?
Yes.
Mr. Nacastro?
Yes.
Mr. Schneider?
Yes.
Mr. Seaman?
Yes.
Mr. Leggio?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor O'Donnell?
Yes.
And Vice Chairman Husser.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Do I have a nomination for consulting planner?
I'll make a motion to appoint CME as consulting planner.
I will second.
No. I have a motion by Mr. Schneider and a second by Chief Kudrick for CME. Chief Kudrick?
Yes.
Mr. Bozovic?
Yes.
Mr. Nacastro?
Yes.
Mr. Schneider?
Yes.
Mr. Seaman?
Yes.
Mr. Leggio?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor O'Donnell?
Yes.
And Vice Chair Husser.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Do I have a nomination for certified tree expert?
I'll nominate CME as our certified tree expert.
Second. Sorry.
I have a motion by Mr. Seaman and a second by Mr. Nacastro for CME. Chief Kudrick?
Yes.
Mr. Bozovic?
Yes.
Mr. Nacastro?
Yes.
Mr. Schneider?
Yes.
Mr. Seaman?
Yes.
Mr. Leggio?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor O'Donnell?
Yes.
And Vice Chair Husser.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Do I have a nomination for administrative officer?
Arlene Brebano.
Second.
Who was the first?
Rob.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I have a motion by Mr. Nacastro and a second by Mr. Schneider. Chief Kudrick?
Yes.
Mr. Bozovic?
Yes.
Mr. Nacastro?
Yes.
Mr. Schneider?
Yes.
Mr. Seaman?
Yes.
Mr. Leggio?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor O'Donnell?
Yes.
And Vice Chair Husser.
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Do I have a nomination for recording secretary?
I'll nominate Eileen Rubano for recording secretary.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Seaman and a second by Deputy Mayor O'Donnell. Chief Kudrick?
Yes.
Mr. Bozovic?
Yes.
Mr. Nacastro?
Yes.
Mr. Schneider?
Yes.
Mr. Seaman?
Yes.
Mr. Leggio?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor O'Donnell?
Yes.
And Vice Chair Husser.
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Eileen, how do you want to handle the 2020 meeting dates?
We talked about the 2020 meeting dates. If everybody's okay with them, we can just memorialize the resolution.
I'll
Okay.
make a motion to memorialize the resolution for the 2020 meeting dates.
Second.
That was Rob. Thank you. I have a motion by Deputy Mayor O'Donnell and a second by Mr. Nacastro. Chief Kudrick?
Yes.
Mr. Bozovic?
Yes.
Mr. Nacastro?
Yes.
Mr. Schneider?
Yes.
Mr. Seaman?
Yes.
Mr. Leggio?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor O'Donnell?
Yes.
And Vice Chair Husser.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Mr. Chairman, under the official newspaper, we're bound under the law by the official newspaper selected by the Township Council, so we need not address that one.
Okay.
Do we need to just mention what they are or anything?
If we know, yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
the official newspapers of the town are the Asbury Park Press, the Star Ledger, and the Tri-Town News.
I'm not sure if we have to vote on the Environmental Commission liaison, as my term runs concurrent.
I think we just name you as the environmental.
Okay.
We'll just acknowledge that's what you are.
Okay.
And then with regard to Site Review Committee, as chairman, that's under your authority, or if you want to just carry it to the next meeting
Yeah, we've
when
just-
Chairman Husser comes back.
We've discussed, and the chairman of the site review committee is going to be Rob Seaman, and the members are going to be Chief Kudrick and myself. And I believe we decided to keep on hold the master plan review committee until Chairman Tannenhouse returns.
Okay.
On to the regular meeting. Eileen, no approval of minutes,
We have no minutes this evening,
no vouchers,
no vouchers.
any correspondence.
I do have a letter from Salvatore Alfieri. He is the attorney for Gil Petroleum, which we carried to tonight for scheduling purposes only. He's asked that that application be carried to March 19th, 2020, which right now that agenda is clear. And he also granted the board an extension of time to act on the application through March 31st, 2020.
Okay, so if that's okay, the application of Gil Petroleum, case number SP-1006, be carried to the board's March 19th, 2020 meeting, beginning 7 o'clock here at Town Hall in the main meeting room. There will be no further notice to property owners.
And that's the only correspondence I have. Everything else was emailed to the members.
Okay, thank you. On to resolutions. The first is case number SP-1032, Brian Hegarty. It's a resolution granting one-year extension of time on preliminary and final site plan approval. Eligible voters are myself, Mr. Nacastro, Mr. Schneider, Mr. Seaman, and Deputy Mayor O'Donnell. Do I
So
have a
moved.
motion? Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Nacastro, a second by Deputy Mayor O'Donnell.
Yes.
Mr. Nacastro?
Yes.
Mr. Schneider?
Yes.
Mr. Seaman?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor O'Donnell?
Yes.
And Vice Chair Husser.
Yes.
Motion carries, resolutions memorialized.
Next resolution is for case number SD 2985, Rosemarie Bird. It's a resolution granting a 190-day extension of time on minor subdivision approval. The eligible voters are Mr. Nacastro, Mr. Schneider, Mr. Seaman.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Nacastro, a second by Mr. Schneider. Mr. Nacastro?
Yes.
Mr. Schneider?
Yes.
And Mr. Seaman.
Yes.
Motion carries, resolutions memorialized.
Okay. The next resolution is case number SP 935A3 for Benderson Development Company. It's a resolution granting submission waivers. Eligible voters are Mr. Nacastro, Mr. Schneider, Mr. Seaman, and Deputy Mayor O'Donnell.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Nacastro, a second by Deputy Mayor O'Donnell. Mr. Nacastro?
Yes.
Mr. Schneider?
Yes.
Mr. Seaman?
Yes.
And Deputy Mayor O'Donnell?
Yes.
Motion carries, resolutions memorialized.
Next resolution is the master plan amendment to the land use element. It's a resolution adopting the amendment to the land use element of the municipal master plan. Eligible voters are Chief Kudrick, Mr. Nacastro, Mr. Schneider, and Deputy Mayor O'Donnell.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Nacastro, a second by Chief Kudrick. Chief Kudrick?
Yes.
Mr. Nacastro?
Yes.
Mr. Schneider?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor O'Donnell?
Yes.
Motion carries, resolutions memorialized.
And the last resolution for tonight is the master plan reexamination report. It's a resolution adopting the reexamination report of the municipal master plan. Eligible voters are Chief Kudrick, Mr. Nacastro, Mr. Schneider, and Deputy Mayor O'Donnell.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Schneider, a second by Deputy Mayor O'Donnell. Chief Kudrick?
Yes.
Mr. Nacastro?
Yes.
Mr. Schneider?
Yes.
And Deputy Mayor O'Donnell?
Yes.
Motion carries, resolutions memorialized. Thank you.
Okay. There's no submission waivers before the board. So we were on to our first application, our only application, case number SP 1052, Monmouth Commerce Center LLC. It's preliminary and final major site plan with ancillary bulk variance. It's an application of Monmouth Commerce Center LLC as applicant and Lawrence Katz and Felix Flaster as owners seeking preliminary and final major site plan approval with ancillary bulk variance and design waivers and exceptions to construct 9 warehouse buildings ranging in size from 85,600 square feet to 150,000 square feet and equaling approximately 1,242,102 square feet in total. 5 full movement access drives along Randolph Road, parking for 706 vehicles and 142 trailer parking spaces, 234 loading spaces, and 5 monument-style identification signs on premises known as Block 5, Lots 2 and 3 at the intersection of Randolph Road and Oak Glen Road. This application was originally scheduled to be heard on April 4th, 2019, when it was rescheduled to May 9th, 2019. After some testimony was placed on the record on May 9th, 2019, this application was carried to June 6, 2019, with no further notice. After some additional testimony on June 6, 2019, this application was carried to June 20th, 2019, with no further notice. And after some testimony on June 20th, 2019, this application was carried to Monday, July 29th, 2019, for a special meeting with no further notice. After testimony on July 29th, 2019, this application was carried to September 19th, 2019, and after testimony on September 9th, 2019, it was carried to October 10th, 2019, for a special meeting with no further notice. After some additional testimony on October 9th, 2019, the application was carried to November 7th, 2019, with no further notice. After testimony on November 7th, 2019, this case was carried to a special meeting date of December 3rd, 2019, but since there was a scheduling conflict, it was rescheduled to December 5th, 2019 with notice. After some testimony on December 5th, 2019, this application was carried to January 16th, 2020 with no further notice. The eligible voters are Mr. Nacastro, myself, Mr. Schneider, Chief Kudrick, Mr. Seaman, and Deputy Mayor O'Donnell. Counselor.
Good evening, Merrill Gonsher, Sills, Cummis, and Gross, representing the applicant. Congratulations on your appointment.
Just, Ms. Concho, just before you continue,
Yes.
just, I know we have other counsel here tonight, so if all counsel could just enter their appearance at this time.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, Mark Halliguire from Florio, Perucci, Steinhardt, and Capelli. I'm filling in for Mr. Bassan, who has been here throughout the proceedings.
You speak in the mic, please.
Okay.
It's on the table.
Yeah, I know. All right, I'll just sit down. That's probably better.
That's fine.
I'm Mark Halliguire from Florio, Perucci, Steinhardt, and Capelli, representing the Citizens Group Hope. I'm filling in for Mr. Bassan, who's been here throughout the proceedings, but I'm sure there's a scheduling conflict, and so I'm filling in for him tonight. He'll be back at the next meeting to finish up.
Okay. Go ahead, Ms. Goncher.
I was just going to say that when we left last time, I had gotten through a portion of cross-examination, but we had requested the ability to continue cross-examination this evening, or at the next meeting, because we had received some data by way of exhibits from the objector's traffic consultant that evening, and wanted the opportunity to have a little more time to go through it with our traffic consultant, which we have now had the opportunity to do. So we have a few more questions for Mr. Fishinger, if we can just continue with the...
Go ahead.
Thank you. All right. I wanted to just ask a question about the 3 sets of counts that you presented as an exhibit, and I know we had changed numbers. This is the exhibit that had 3 different sets of counts,
Yeah, I believe it's Exhibit 06,
which had originally been marked maybe as 03.
03, and had been remarked as 06.
Correct.
I don't know why I'm not finding that one. Just give me a sec. All right. You had indicated that when you did the one count that you did at that intersection, or the one set of counts at that intersection, that you had used a different method for the count, an electronic method as opposed to manual?
Yes, as I explained at the last hearing, they were done with the system is called Maya Vision. It's a digital camera system.
Okay. Do you know, and you had commented that our count was done as a manual count, is that accurate?
That's my understanding, yes. I believe your traffic engineer can confirm that if necessary.
And you, can I ask if you know whether the 2016 count that you also relied upon as showing a higher number was done manually?
My firm did not perform that count, but I would assume it was done manually. Based on the reports given, it looks like it was a manual count.
Okay. Now, you also testified that the numbers used in the applicant's report were lower. Your language was lower, considerably lower than what was otherwise counted. You did, in fact, then acknowledge in response to the former chair's question that the applicant had balanced the intersections, thereby increasing the numbers. So is it correct to say that your testimony was incorrect? That the numbers used in the report were not, in fact, lower?
As you just stated, they were adjusted. The numbers presented as existing volumes at the intersection are as shown on my exhibit.
Wasn't my question. Your testimony was that the numbers used in the applicant's report were lower, considerably lower than what was otherwise counted. Since the numbers were, you've acknowledged that the numbers were balanced, were the numbers that were used in the actual report lower, as you testified?
As I just stated before, both numbers were used and presented in the report. The numbers that I'm presenting in my exhibit are verbatim from the technical appendix of your traffic engineer's report.
Okay, so
He
let's...
did adjust them before completing the analysis.
Okay, so in terms of calculating how much traffic, when he did his calculations in the report, were the numbers that were used in making those calculations higher than the numbers that you presented in your counts?
They were his adjusted numbers were consistent with the other counts. I do not know off the top of my head if they were exactly higher or lower.
Okay, so why don't I provide you... When you say that they were consistent with the other report, the other counts, what is that, what are you saying? What is that actually?
Consistent with the numbers that I'm presenting in my exhibit. I'm sure you can bring your traffic engineer back up to testify what numbers are in his report.
We will. But I just want to then make sure that we're clear that when you say they're consistent with the numbers, my understanding was they balanced each intersection, and then they took the highest number between our number and the ones from the 2016, and if the 2016 was higher, that was the number that was used in the calculation. Is that accurate?
I don't believe Mr. Taylor testified to that, and I would recommend you let Mr. Taylor make the statement himself. I'm not going to suppose what he did.
Okay, so if those numbers are shown in the report, you're not prepared to confirm that? If those numbers are actually in the report?
Which numbers are you referring to?
The increased numbers that were then included in the calculations.
I believe they are in the report, yes. I do not have them committed to memory.
Okay. Now, was it your testimony also that Mr. Taylor had testified that the percentage of trucks was increased when they did the 547 and Randolph Road, when they looked at that intersection and calculated the stacking there? You had testified, and you presented, I think one of your exhibits was a sheet which you indicated did not...
Counselor, which exhibit are you referring to?
Okay. You know, it's easier when I can spread them out and they don't slide off the table.
Merrill, it looks
Is it
like
eight?
it's
It's
exhibit
I
08.
think it was the next to last or the last one. Here it is. Now, which sheet did you present?
It is 08.
Thanks.
No, I'm asking, it is 08. We're referring
It's
to the same
well,
document?
it's 05 and we added 3, yes,
Correct,
08.
okay, thank you.
Which of the, which sheets did you present to establish that, contrary to his testimony, he had not increased the heavy vehicle percentage?
These printouts are, as I believe I testified last time, are directly from the latest synchro files that were provided to the board and subsequently to my office.
Were they the only ones? The only synchro files that had a figure for heavy vehicle?
There were multiple reports with multiple analyses. I chose what I believed was the most recent for analysis.
Okay. Do you have a copy of the report? If you look at the
Which report are you referring to?
Synchro 10 report, this is from the traffic report presented in the appendix. This is for,
The revised April 26th?
that's correct.
Yes, I have it in front of me.
And the top of it says existing AM. Lakewood Farmingdale Road, CR 547, and Randolph Road on the upper right.
Is there a page number you're referring
You
to?
know, I don't think they're actually,
No,
There's no page
there's a
number?
lot of numbers, but I don't think any of them are
no,
pages.
the appendices was not. Which?
Upper right says existing AM for Lakewood Farmingdale Road, and the bottom right says Sync Road 10 report.
With a date of April 26, 2019?
Correct.
Yes, I have it
Okay.
in front of me.
All right. And if you look at the heavy vehicles there, just to make sure we're on the same, there are westbound left, westbound right, northbound through, northbound right, southbound left, and southbound through. And the numbers that correspond for percentages are 3%, 5%. Are you on the same?
Yes.
Okay. 3%, 5%, 3%, 7%, 6%, and 10%.
That's what
And
the
then
report
the next
says, yes.
page is existing PM.
This says existing AM here, right?
Right, and the next
Right,
one,
and the next page is existing PM.
okay. And then is the next page following that build phase 4 with mitigation, or a few pages after on the upper right? I only have the pages out, so it may be a few pages after. I apologize. But it's build phase 4 with mitigation AM.
Yes.
Okay. And in that case, is the westbound right turn increased over the percentage in the existing? My sheet shows it went from 5% to an increase to 9%.
Yes, comparing these two records, it did increase.
Okay. And for the southbound left turn, in the existing condition, it was 6%. My sheet for build phase 4 for southbound left turn shows 17%.
That's right.
Okay.
That's what your report shows.
Okay, so in fact, there was an increase in the percentage of heavy vehicles shown there.
In the original report, yes.
And going on to the build phase 4 with mitigation for the PM, for the westbound right turn, in the existing condition, it shows 1%. And for the westbound right, in the build phase 4 with mitigation,
Bear with me one
Oh, I'm
second.
sorry.
I have to find that
Yep.
report.
build phase 4 with mitigation PM.
Heavy vehicle percentages. Yes, go ahead.
Okay,
Down that line.
that one went from the existing condition in the PM, as I said, westbound right from 1%, that went up to, he added it, brought it up to 10% for the build condition. And for the southbound left turn, 4% in the existing condition, and increase to 8% in
Yes,
the,
that-
okay.
That's correct.
So in fact, the percentages were increased in the build condition for that intersection.
In the report revised April 26, 2019, yes.
Okay, and that was the most recent one that's currently before the board.
That is the most recent written report. As I previously testified, the printouts that I provided in my testimony were synchro files provided by the applicant to the board and then subsequently to my office, which I believe had a date of October 9th, 2019, which were later than the report.
But you did have this report. You did have this, the report we're referring to now, is that?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Going back just for a moment to the, where we started, which were the three different counts at the intersection you counted. For even your raw counts, the numbers that were on the first exhibit we referred to, I think 6. You had testified last time that not all of the counts in our numbers from 2018 were lower. Is that true?
I believe so, yes. The numbers are pretty straightforward.
And can you give me the number for the overall AM count that you counted, or your equipment counted?
As I believe we went through in great detail last time, my count shows a total morning peak hour of 909 vehicles at that intersection.
Okay, and the count from 2018, which was provided by the applicant?
Again, as that shows, 827.
All right, and the difference then between the, those two numbers was?
82?
Okay, and did you also testify that, that there would, we would expect that there would be small differences, daily variations? I think you referred to them of around 10%.
I don't recall my exact words, but that sounds correct.
All right. And is 82 about 10% of those numbers?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so that would be something that you would sort of anticipate. All
If
right.
there's testimony, do you have testimony you'd like to read back to Mr. Fisher?
What was that?
No, I'm saying is, I'm asking counsel if there's specific testimony she'd like to read back to my witness, because she's asking, based on your testimony, did you say this? I think it would, you know, I think if she has specific testimony, she'd like him to reiterate or expand upon or
She's
confirm.
just asking him to confirm certain elements of testimony. Mr. Chair, I think it's fine for us to continue.
Would you like me to, I mean, does that sound right? If you want me to read it, I'll be happy to.
I don't think that's necessary.
Thanks. Okay. All right. I think we may actually almost be done. Can I have 1 second? I'm going to check one number. All right, if I can then refer to your Exhibit 5.
I'm sorry,
Exhibit 5.
number 5?
Okay, this was the trip generation comparison that we had actually submitted, and I think you had testified that the only difference really was that you had highlighted some of the numbers?
That is correct.
Okay. And we had quite a dialogue about the 400 square feet of medical that we had indicated was permitted under the ordinance that could be built. And I think you had also testified that these numbers that were on ours, and which you then highlighted, were directly out of the ITE, or that those numbers followed from the ITE numbers.
Yes, I believe I even gave you the supporting documents that they're based on.
Okay, so if you could look at the land use code 720, the medical, the bottom one, where we had indicated that 400,000 square feet can be constructed based upon the current zoning as to use and bulk requirements. The total number that would be generated from that use shows is 767 spaces, cars, not spaces, sorry, 767 in the AM and 1,358 in the PM?
That's right, that's what
Okay.
the exhibit shows.
All right. And you had indicated that there were no, I think your testimony was that there were no data points in the ITE for medical with 400,000 square feet, or you said no more than around 100,000 square feet in the data point. Given that, if we used the 100,000 that you indicated was shown in data points in ITE, would it be fair to say that the total traffic generated would be approximately a quarter of what's in the exhibit for 400,000 square feet?
I can't do that math in my head. The equation for this is a logarithmic equation, which I cannot do without a calculator.
Okay, so you wouldn't be willing to say that it would be approximately a quarter?
I don't know what it would be without doing the math.
Okay. We'll go back to that in direct. All right. That's what we have for the witness. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Calguire, do you have any redirect?
No, sir.
Okay. Do you have any other witnesses?
No.
Okay.
Fisher's our only witness.
Okay. Counsel, I believe you wanted to bring up Mr. Taylor again? For a okay.
When are you planning, are you going to open up for questions on Mr. Fissinger's testimony to the public, or is that,
Well, I thought that we had done that at the last meeting.
was it completed?
Yeah.
I'll defer to the attorneys, but if there was an additional testimony tonight, doesn't the public get an opportunity to question that testimony,
Could we add-
similar to Ms.
What, you didn't
Nonco?
have it, you were answering questions for cross-examination. You didn't provide additional direct testimony. Am I wrong?
I'll leave it to the attorneys.
We
Decide.
did open it up to public.
We did open it. Hey, look, you want to sit up here longer?
No, I guess I...
Let's go for it. Mr. Chair, you want to open it up to the public? We'll see if this witness seems eager to answer more questions. I would recommend we open it to the public. I think we were done, but let's open it to the public.
So we'll open to the public. If anybody would like to come up and ask questions only, please come forward.
On what was testified to tonight.
Correct.
Although I think he was, well, whatever. It's, you know, you all seem to want to extend this, and, you
No, I'm
know,
just, if there are...
that's how you want to have fun tonight. Let's do it.
Anyone?
Right.
Doesn't seem that way.
None? Great, thank you.
Thank you. We'll close it.
Okay, Mr. Taylor, I remind you, remain under oath. Please just state and spell your name for the record.
Justin Taylor, Taylor.
Is this the newer one? I'm so messed up. I need to be on this then. Okay. All right, but I also, you're going to do this one. Okay. All right. Have you, I don't know if you were with us the evening that Joe testified. If you have not, have you had occasion to review his testimony?
Yes, I went through the exhibits that were prepared by Mr. Fishinger, as well as reviewing the transcripts of the hearing.
All right. Can you address one of the, Mr. Fishinger spoke about, with regard to the ITE, whether it was appropriate to use what was called the fitted curve or an average rate under the ITE when you looked at the warehouse category for trip generation. He took the position that what should have been used was average rate, which would have generated a higher trip generation. Can you explain whether you think that he's correct, and if not, why?
Absolutely. So the Institute of Transportation Engineers sets forth in their trip generation handbook a methodology when you have both average rates and fitted curve equations for each land use. And they actually put together a very straightforward flow chart to determine whether you should be using the fitted curve or you should be utilizing an average rate. This flow chart is figure 4.2 in that publication. And I do have copies of this if you'd like to share it with people.
Is this one of the things that's on the,
It is.
so should we give that to Eileen?
You can if you need to.
Well, I don't know. What
So,
We have
It needs to be
a,
entered.
we have it on a thumb drive if you want. It's just a chart out of ITE. Or we have copies
This
to
has not
hand out.
been submitted yet?
no, it is not.
Okay, so what are we up to?
8:35.
All right, so this will be A35. We'll put it up on the screen. And just, yeah. Mr. Calguire, do you have any objection to the exhibit?
Oh, he has one, good.
Well, actually, counsel, you got to come up so we get you.
I have no objection to the exhibit. I mean, I haven't seen it, nor has my expert, but I guess I'd reserve the right to have him review it if need be and come back and testify to it, but we'll take a look at it.
All right.
Thank you.
Mr. Taylor, what should we call this?
We can call this process for selecting average rate or equation in trip generation manual data.
Actually, can we just, looking at it, can we just call it page 28 from the ITE handbook?
You may.
Okay.
This is third edition to that.
That's the most current edition. And so what this chart lays forth is a process for to determine whether you should be utilizing average rates or fitted curve equations. For the land use that we have, land use 150, we would go down through these steps. Step 1, is it compatible with the ITE land use code? Well, yes, our warehouse development is compatible with the definition of what ITE defines for a warehouse. Step 2 would be, do the sizes fall within the data extremes? And based on the exhibit that Mr. Fishinger presented at the last hearing, you can see that our proposed warehouse does fall within the min and max counted as part of the ITE data. We would go to step 3, and it says how many data points are available for this? Are there 3 to 5, or are there 6 plus? If it's 6 plus, which based on Mr. Fishinger's exhibit, you would see, I think there are approximately 34, although did I give you?
Yeah.
Nope, here I got it. So there are 23 studies in the morning, and there are 25 studies in the evening, right? So we're 6 plus. We now move down to the bottom and move to the right to number 7. Are there 20 or more data points? Well, as I just stated, there were 23 in the morning and 25 in the evening. And so that leads us to the determination that for this land use, we should be using the fitted curve equation. Now, that's exactly what was done in our traffic study and all the analysis that have been submitted. So we feel that that's the correct way, based on the IT and the guidance they give to use their data, to analyze the use that we've proposed. We did have the ability, although, and basing back to Mr. Fishinger's exhibit number 5, right, no, here's my number 4.
I only got 6. Which one
This is that right here. So we also had the ability between the last hearing and this to take a look at the average rates. Now, if we refer to Mr. Fishinger's Exhibit 4, you can see that if you use the average rate, the trip generation would be approximately 40 cars higher in the morning from 174 to 211, and approximately 60 cars higher from 177 to 236 in the evening. We had the ability to run the trip generation for this and run the capacity analysis for this. And what we came up with was that even though we utilize the methodology that ITE sets forth and recommends, the difference in analysis, all of our driveways are continued to operate at level service C, even if you added those 60 cars to it. So while we don't believe that his methodology or his assertion that the average rate should be used, even if you do, the results that we set forth in the traffic study don't change. And so really, I had a chance to critique most of his exhibits. So if we want to just move on to the next one. Exhibit 5, there's been a little bit of testimony tonight about the trip generation rates and the comparison to the other permitted uses in the zone. Now, typically a chart like this we would do if we were a use variance. We would look to see whether or not what the township had determined was an appropriate use on the site, and then we would compare it to the use that we were proposing. This is actually a permitted use here. The township has determined that a warehouse is an appropriate use for the site, but we wanted to just take a look at what the other uses would generate. And so I think we've testified to this at length, but as was just discussed.
So let me just clarify. The exhibit that we're referring to now is the one I referred to earlier, and this is Exhibit 05.
Yes, that's correct.
And this was an exhibit we presented, and then Mr. Fishinger highlighted some of the blocks within the exhibit and commented on them in his testimony.
That's correct.
But the numbers in this exhibit, both Mr. Fishinger's exhibit and when we presented it, the numbers are the same.
That is correct.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, go ahead.
And so from reading the transcripts, I think at length there was conversation about whether or not 400,000 square feet of medical office would be developed. We determined that it could be based upon the zoning codes of the township. But the number 100,000 came up multiple times. And so I decided to take a look at what 100,000 of medical office would generate. I respect Mr. Fishinger not being able to do logarithmic equations in his head. I can't either. But we had a chance to run those numbers. And what we find is during the morning peak hour, 100,000 square feet of medical office would generate 278 trips in comparison to the 174 that's projected by the warehouse. In the evening, it would generate 346 trips in comparison to the 177 generated by the warehouse development, or nearly double of what's proposed. So even if 100,000 wasn't built, even if 400,000 wasn't built, 100,000 is still generating double what is proposed by the applicant here in this project. So I feel that of the various land uses that are permitted within the zone, the warehousing land use is one of the much lower generators comparative to the other uses that are permitted. Moving on to Exhibit 06. Again, tonight we've talked about this and about the counts that were done both in 2016 and 2018, as well as the counts that were conducted by NV5 in 2019.
NV5 being Mr. Fishinger.
That's correct. Yep. I wholeheartedly agree with the numbers that are presented in his exhibit. The traffic counts that we conducted in 2018 were lower than what we found in 2016, and were lower than what he counted in 2019. However, as I testified to in previous meetings, we didn't just use them verbatim. We actually took the peak hour of all the traffic counts along Randolph Road independently. Even though they may not coincide, some of them may have been from 7:30 to 8:30, some of them may have been 8 to 9. We found the highest traffic at each one of those intersections and balanced up to that. So we increased all the volumes along that corridor up to that.
When you say that corridor, which road were you?
Along Randolph Road. We had the opportunity to count multiple intersections along Randolph Road between 547 and Brook. And so we balanced up to the highest counts there. We then went back and looked at the 2016 counts that were conducted as part of the 41 Randolph application. which came in higher than what we had balanced up to. And we increased the volumes along Randolph Road to match those higher volumes. So we added another level of conservativeness to that to get the highest volumes we're going to analyze. And so comparative to Mr. Fishinger's numbers, the numbers utilized in the traffic study are between 4 and 17% higher than what he actually counted. So we actually are approximately 162, I believe, higher in the morning and about 51 higher in the evening. I got it. So what that shows is the analysis that we conducted for our existing volumes actually is more conservative and higher than the numbers that he presented in his traffic count. So we feel that that the basis and the foundation of the whole traffic study is more conservative than he would even project based on his numbers.
So even if, obviously, we did not have his numbers when you did this analysis and balanced and then added the 2016. And in most instances, I think the 2016 in those instances, most instances, I guess, those were the higher numbers. So even if you had put in the numbers from Mr. Fishinger, you would not have gotten a different result.
That's correct.
Mr. Chair, if I may, as all these traffic numbers swirl around in my head, just as a point of clarity, I think probably for everybody, obviously the counts are quite different between the medical use and the warehousing use. When those numbers are broken down, is the warehousing use contemplating, okay, well, X percent of this number is truck traffic, and the medical is X percent is truck traffic?
It's in that as well.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep, and that goes into the analysis that we've done as part of the traffic.
So that does account for vehicle length and everything else in terms of queuing?
That's great, and it's a perfect segue into the next exhibit and the next commentary. Nope, I'm sorry. We can skip to number 8 if you want to segue, but going back to his exhibit number 7, which talked about the ability for us to sign a no turns for trucks coming out of the driveway. Mr. Fishinger presented data from the Department of Transportation stating, which I agree with, that municipalities and counties to establish certain traffic controls excluding weight limits without NJDOT review or involvement. And so what he said, and what I agree with, is in order to post a weight limit restriction on a roadway, you do need approval from the NJDOT. However, in his same exhibit, if you were to look further into the Title 39 code, specifically RS 39:4-197.
That's the New Jersey statutes. We refer to it shorthand as Title 39. It's a chapter in the New Jersey state statutes. Sorry.
Absolutely. Within this statute, it sets forth abilities of municipalities to govern traffic rules. And under H, it gives the municipality the ability regulating the entrances to and exits from parking yards and parking places which are open to the public or to which the public is invited, except that this shall not apply to entrances or exits to and from state highways. So what this statute allows is this board and the municipality to limit turning movements, both to passenger vehicles and to trucks. We're not setting weight limits, and we're not at all addressing weight limits along a public roadway. We're governing the entrance and exit to a parking yard that is open to the public or which invites the public in, employees, the trucks that are coming to and from this warehouse, and such as that. So it's my opinion that we're fully within our right and can sign this and enforce this truck restriction that we have proposed. All right, moving on to Exhibit 08. Here's my bifurcated segue to the heavy vehicle percentages. I don't think there's much I need to hit on this. Mr. Fishinger confirmed with our attorney's cross-examination that when we ran the analysis for the signalized intersection, the mitigation of this project, we accommodated and increased the heavy vehicle percentages to reflect the fact that there's a large percentage of trucks associated with the warehouse use. So that analysis and that additional truck traffic is incorporated in the analysis that was set forth in the original traffic study and has been carried through every bit of analysis that's been submitted to this board. If we were to now move to...
Can you just, let me just make sure that we're throwing out the numbers. The purpose for that was to reflect the impact of trucks being in the flow of traffic when you were measuring the extent of stacking or queuing by an intersection. Is that an inartful person's way?
That gets most of it. So the heavy vehicle percentage is incorporated into the capacity analysis. Heavy vehicles take a little bit longer to turn, they take longer to accelerate, and all that goes into the analysis. It's also part of the queuing exhibit that we do. So in that analysis, we take the traffic volumes that we have, we take the percentage of trucks that are in there, and we put that into the software. And so it is accommodated in the analysis.
Okay, so the concern would be if you had not done that for this proposed signalized intersection, it would not accurately reflect the actual operation as well as the actual queuing at that intersection, because it would not take into account the difference between the heavy vehicle and the regular auto.
That's correct.
Okay, but we did incorporate that. And how did you arrive at the numbers that you used to increase that percentage?
So the percentages were increased based upon the existing traffic volumes and the existing heavy vehicle percentages identified from the counts, as well as the anticipated truck routes and truck traffic generated by the project.
Mr. Chair, quick question, just for curiosity. Although you incorporated 2016 counts, do you have an opinion as to why 2016 was more than it was in 2018?
I honestly, no, I can't say. I was not the one there taking the counts, so I'm not sure now.
Mr. Chairman, at the last meeting from your opposite, I heard testimony that the trucks making a turn into the driveways would have to cross to the other lane of traffic.
That was our next point. We're getting to it. We weren't done.
So I can move on to that. That is Exhibit 10. If you want to just hold for 1 second, we can go through Exhibit 9, and then I can go to the last exhibit, or I can jump to that, whatever your pleasure is.
We are covering that.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
they're going to get to it. I would just recommend that they
Just
proceed
keep
in the
continuing
manner
as-
that they were going.
But we will cover it.
Okay.
So if we go into Exhibit 9 was a concept plan that was prepared by Mr. Fishinger in his office, essentially illustrating the geometric improvements that are identified in our report. I do concur with him that this is the geometry that we've come up with. There are turning lanes along Route 547. There is a turning lane along Randolph Road. We are currently working through conceptual design with the county. We're collecting the necessary background data, the survey, the property information, to be able to accurately develop a concept plan. Looking at his concept, I agree with most of it. I believe that we probably could shorten some of the tapers. I think given some of the radii and the queue lengths that we're looking at, we may be able to split the difference instead of widening all to one road. But it is something that we're working through, and we will be working through with the county to develop the design with their standards in mind. So this is one solution. There are probably multiple solutions, and we're going to evaluate it from a property impact standpoint, as well as a geometric and topographic standpoint once we collect all that data. But I don't disagree in general with the turn lanes that he's proposed. It really is going to come down to what we find in the field as opposed to drawing something on an aerial.
Mr. Taylor, I know we've hit on this in the past, but are all your trip generations based upon the fact that there will be a light at Randolph Road and 547?
So our analysis at this point identifies that the traffic signal will be here. And after meeting with the county has made it very clear that they are going to require a traffic signal here in order to approve this. So the analysis does anticipate the construction of a traffic signal. And so then our final exhibit, or the final exhibit of Mr. Fishinger, was the truck circulation exhibit. Laura, I think there's another one on that flash drive, if we want to pull it up. It may not be, it may be just as poorly visible as.
The capacity analysis or driveway?
Should be driveway. And I have handouts.
Jump down close and I think, yeah, I didn't realize it wasn't down. Is this the same exhibit or did we clean
So
this one up?
this is new?
This is cleaned up.
Okay, so this is a new,
All right, so this is a revised document. We're seeing it for the first time tonight.
Yes, sir.
All right, so this will be P29.
So my understanding is the applicant closed their case, and now we have two additional exhibits. Are we going to have an opportunity to review
Yes.
these and come back and, you know,
Well,
we provided the same opportunity for the applicant.
why don't we see what you need to do after they're finished testifying?
Okay.
So certainly, you're going to have an opportunity to cross-examine, based upon,
But we may need more time for two reasons. One is.
well, we don't know yet, so
Okay,
let's
all
let
right.
them finish.
Thank you.
Do you have an objection to the exhibit, though?
I have no objection to the exhibit per se, but, right.
Okay.
Again, I was not under the impression that they had to
Well,
continue.
Section 10B of the municipal land use law allows, any interested party to provide exhibits at the time of the hearing to clarify their testimony. So certainly, it's not improper, but we'll discuss whether you've had appropriate time to, appreciate what the exhibits are and whether you're prepared to cross-examine after they're finished.
Thank you, Councilman.
Okay. I thought this was
just to clarify, this is,
oh, I'm sorry, this is A36. A36,
Ron, we can call it driveway vehicle circulation exhibit.
and it's last revised.
Last
when?
revised 1/16/20.
Okay.
it's eight, do I have a copy of it? I just want to make it 8:36, okay, sorry.
And so just to walk the board and the public through this, there really is minimal modification from the last exhibit that was presented and that was reviewed by Mr. Fishinger. What we were able to do, given his concerns, was to take a hard look at the truck circulation and the driveway striping for the project. We were able to narrow some of the lanes down to a 12-foot lane, which is actually more than sufficient for vehicles of this size on some of the outbound lanes, which eliminated any encroachment of the vehicles onto each other's paths. So there was concern at driveway A, and we were able to eliminate any encroachment of the two vehicle paths, as well as entrance D and internal intersection G.
So let me understand, this is working within the same driveway width, that what was done was, in essence, moving the center line over to allocate the driveway, instead of 15 and 15, to take 3 additional feet and move it onto one lane, which allowed the trucks to maneuver better within the same pavement area.
That's correct. We allocated a greater portion of the driveway to the inbound maneuver to give them a little bit more maneuvering room as they made the right-hand turn into the site. And so that eliminated any encroachment into the outbound lane.
You want to mention that we would be willing to expand it, but the ordinance seems to say that.
I'm sure I can. I guess the one thing I can mention here is that I think there's been discussion at some of the previous hearings about the ordinance's stance on the width of driveways, and whether 24 feet is required and greater than that, it requires board approval. There's a separate statute within there that says 30-foot minimum for commercial and industrial design, and so we're willing to ask for that, the board to let us go to the 30 feet. I would be more than willing to go greater than that if the board, I think if you gave a little bit more room, in some warehouse developments, industrial developments, I'll do 35 or 40-foot driveway widths just to give a little extra ease of maneuvering. And I believe we started there when this application began, and the board raised some concern about a 30-foot width, and so we were able to reduce those down with still maintaining safe access. But if I were to go back and do this again, I would probably go back to the original design of the wider driveways, at least entering the site.
Do we have the citation for that? I think it's 106H.
I don't have that.
Laura, is it 106H?
Can I just ask a question? I just want to make sure that I understand the significance of the exhibit. So the actual width of the access drive itself has not changed. Rather, the striping has changed, which impacts the width of the lane in either direction?
That is correct.
So is that now, are you proposing that as part of your plan, or is this just an exhibit which is meant to address a comment raised by the objector's engineer?
No, we would propose that as part of this plan.
And the significance of that, you're asserting, is that a truck would now be able to access the site and remain in one lane rather than taking up two lanes at some point?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
And I think 188-106 is the ordinance provision. In one place, it indicates, and correct me if I'm wrong, that for driveways over 24 feet, have to be approved by the board. There is another subsection that indicates that driveways are to be a minimum of 30 feet for commercial and industrial uses. So we started out our design with somewhere between 33 and 35 feet, but we're told that the board does not approve more than 30 feet. That is how we ended up back down to 30 feet. We started with slightly more because we read the ordinance as saying a minimum of 30 feet for an industrial, and we're an industrial. So our representation to the board is, if there's still a concern, then widening it by a few feet would certainly provide, as we originally designed, further width for the trucks to travel, and we believe your ordinance permits it expressly, but that we still believe, as the testimony indicates, that by shifting the center line, we gain some of that benefit as if it was a wider driveway within the 30 feet, which we're being told is really the maximum that the board generally approves. So, but we're certainly open to widening that by 2 feet or 4 feet or whatever the board may deem appropriate in order to provide even a greater margin if that's the board's preference. Did we cover everything? Did you have do we have any other numbers you wanted to give them? Just give me 1 second. Did that address Mr. Schneider, your concern? Okay, I think that was it.
Okay, just for the record, Mr. Schneider did nod yes.
Thank you. If he had more questions, we're certainly happy to discuss.
If you had more
it.
questions, you would hear them.
Or maybe not. All right, I think that's it for our rebuttal testimony from this witness.
Okay, Mr. Chair, what we need to do is open it to the public, which includes the objector's counsel, to ask questions limited to the rebuttal testimony tonight, and we can hear argument from plaintiff's counsel regarding whether at least this particular exhibit and the testimony associated with Exhibit A36 is something that can be done tonight. So I'd recommend that we bring counsel for the objector up first.
Okay, Counselor?
In exhibit, I guess applicant's exhibit 35, so you've provided an analysis from the trip generation handbook. So is this the analysis, Mr. Taylor, you used to provide the data in exhibit 5? Is this the analysis you went through?
In exhibit, in Mr. Fishinger's exhibit 5?
Yes, correct.
So let's go back to his.
I mean, you're referring to an analysis here.
I believe it was
Proffering it.
exhibit 4 of Mr. Fishinger's.
Okay.
And
Is this the analysis you did go through?
this is how, this analysis, this flow chart is what we utilized to determine that we should be using the fitted curve equation to calculate the trip generation for the project.
So you did this, so after the fact or while you were preparing your analysis for this project?
At the inception of the project.
This is the analysis you went through?
At the inception of every project that we do, we utilize this flow chart to determine the trip generation.
Okay. This is A36, correct? Yeah, okay. I do have one question. I would like to reserve the right, since this is it looks like it's a change to the design. Am I incorrect in saying, it looks like it's a change to the design?
Which
Well, I'm referring to A36, your new exhibit.
Yep.
So I'd like to, I'd like the opportunity, and we may have to, when we come back, it's
Well, why don't we do this, counsel?
well, I do have a question about it, but I'd like to reserve the right to have my expert analyze it more.
I understand. I'm trying to respond to that.
Gotcha.
So there was a lot of, there was other testimony that had nothing to do with 836 tonight. So, I think that testimony at least can be subject to your cross-exam. Mr. Chair, I think there is a valid point with regard to 836 from the position that whether there's a change in design or not, there's a representation that the modification in the striping allows large trucks to now access the site without going over the line into both lanes. I don't know that sitting there in the public tonight, the objector's engineer can confirm that. I don't know what's necessary to confirm it, but, probably in the 10 minutes that they've had it, that's something that they may need a little extra time for. The remainder of the rebuttal testimony, however, it was responding to the engineer for the objector. So I think the board probably should consider, allowing some additional time for A36, but the remainder of the rebuttal testimony, I think, can be accomplished tonight.
Isn't this really responding?
I would agree. Does-
I just want to reserve the right to come back on A36. But I do have one quick question on it, just to
I think,
clarify
didn't,
for me.
counsel,
What's that?
didn't I kind of just agree with you?
Yeah.
All right, so, okay.
But I do have one quick question, just to have it clarified for Mr. Taylor, it might help our analysis later. In internal intersection F, there's a line here. That turning radius, wouldn't that still block a car from exiting, or am I reading it incorrectly?
No, so internal intersection F
Right,
is an internal intersection.
right.
We do anticipate that the truck would need to wait for a vehicle to turn into and out of that site. This is not atypical to warehouse development and internal roadways within a warehouse development.
But you would have a truck that would presumably have to wait, or someone would have to back up. There wouldn't be room.
There really
for-
wouldn't be backing up there. You would have to wait. Now, there's a possible solution. I don't have a concern with this design. I really don't. This is the way we do internal roadways in larger warehouse developments. However, if the board had a concern, we very easily can prohibit trucks from making that left. This roadway runs down the western side of the property to the rear access aisle in the back of the property, and the loading docks for the southern warehouses could be accessed via that southern roadway. So again, while I don't have a concern with it from a design perspective, if it was a concern of the board, we would be more than willing to prohibit left turns for the trucks there, and force them to the rear roadway.
At this time, I have no further questions on this exhibit, but presumably, Mr. Fishinger would have the opportunity to look at it, and then we'd be able to at least ask a few more questions of Mr. Taylor in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Counsel. Before we open it up to the public, I think we're going to try and take a 10-minute break here for restrooms. So,
The board will now take a recess.
I would send it to Joe and Craig if you have it.
Eileen, I guess we have to do roll call again.
Sure.
I can give it
Mr.
to you.
Dorado was excused. Chief Kudrick? Here. Mr. Bozovic?
Here.
Mr. Nacastro?
Here.
Mr. Schneider?
Yes,
Mr. Seaman?
Here.
Mr. Leggio? Here. Mr. Everett was excused. Deputy Mayor O'Donnell?
Still present.
Vice Chairman Husser?
Here.
And Chairman Tannenhouse is excused. You have a quorum still. Thank you.
Thanks, Eileen. Okay, so now we will open it up to questions from the public. Mind you, it's questions only from the testimony that you heard this evening. So if anybody'd like to come up.
And it's also, it's also limited to those members of the public who are not represented by the attorney from Hope. All right, so when you get up, we just ask that you come to the mic. Since you're asking questions, you don't need to be sworn in, but you do need to state and spell your name and give us your address.
Sure. John Gurzo, Gurzo, 707 Oak Glen Road.
Okay, go ahead, sir.
Thanks. I see the traffic studies have addressed Randolph Road, mostly the access to this facility from Squonkam Road. But I do see the access, the driveways allow access to come from, if we look at Randolph Road on an east to west basis, that allows access in there from traffic that's coming up Randolph Road from the east. Has there been any analysis of the impact of the traffic that would want to access this facility from the east that inevitably will use Oak Glen Road?
Yes, there has.
Haven't seen it addressed.
So within the traffic study, and I think has been previously testified to it at other meetings, we did analyze the intersection of Oak Glen Road with Randolph, as well as Oak Glen Road with Brook Lakewood Allenwood.
Okay.
We are proposing improvements along Oak Glen Road. We're going to widen Oak Glen Road to provide left turn lanes, both onto Randolph and onto Brook, or I guess Lakewood Allenwood, to mitigate the impact of the traffic.
At what point will you widen Oak Glen Road?
I'm not sure I understand the question.
I thought I just heard you say that you were going to widen
We are.
Oak Glen Road?
That's correct.
At what point? I mean, at what point?
At what point in time or where?
No, what point on the road?
Oh.
Between Brook Road and Randolph Road, that entire section there. Basically along our frontage of the property.
Okay, my concern is the other end of Oak Glen, from Randolph to the intersection of Oak Glen and Squonkam Road. So did your analysis include that part of Oak Glen Road?
Our analysis incorporated the intersection of Oak Glen Road,
Of Oak Glen Road?
not the other end of
Sir.
Oak Glen Road, that's correct.
Sir, you just need to allow him to finish the answer to the
Yes.
questions, though, before you
Yes.
move on.
All right, so you did not include that part of Oak Glen. Here's my concern. That part of Oak Glen Road is 100% residential. There are probably 50 houses on that road, at least. And there's just no question in my mind that the spillover from the access and the egress of this facility is going to wind up on Oak Glen Road. It's a shortcut down Randolph to Oak Glen to bypass the light that's going to wind up there on Squonkam Road. You're probably going to need a light at the intersection of Oak Glen and Squonkam Road, because you're going to get inevitably a spillover down Oak Glen Road. It's a shortcut. Anybody can look at a map and see that. So would people that reside on Oak Glen Road, I've lived on Oak Glen Road for 44 years.
Well, sir.
Somebody needs to think about us.
Sir, there's going to be an opportunity at the end where
I've
everyone's
made
going
my
to...
point.
Okay.
I have made my point. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so again, just please state and spell your name for the record and give us your address.
Tina Smilek, S-M-I-L-E-K.
I'm sorry, Ms. SM,
I-L-E-K.
and your address?
33 Charles Street, Howell. From the last time you testified until this time you testified, how many times have you been back to the site?
Once, I believe.
Okay. Now, we're talking about this line, we're moving, I'm sorry, the stripe, are you moving the stripe on the road up to make a wider, I just had a hard time understanding that.
No, the striping modifications are all on the driveways for the site.
All on the driveways for the site. Will this allow, if we have a fire truck coming in and a car going out or a tractor-trailer truck going out, how will that affect each other?
So the tractor-trailer trucks and the passenger vehicles will be able to exit at the same time.
But a fire truck?
The fire truck, if they were to enter during the center aisle, would still need to utilize the entire width of the roadway.
So it would only be able to enter, I mean, if there's an emergency, again, my main concern is emergency here, that people are going to be getting out of here, trucks are going to be in and out of here, and we're going to have first responders trying to get in. Where are we here? We still have an issue.
Well, no, I think we have 5 entrances up and down the corridor to be able to enter and exit the site, and we've shown that there is safe access for the fire trucks through all the driveways,
While a truck is going out,
while a truck is going out,
on all the driveways.
on every truck. Every driveway the trucks are going out, yes.
Okay, so the trucks aren't going out every one of these driveways?
That's correct.
And how do you maintain not getting trucks, or is that not a traffic question?
I'm not sure. Can you repeat? I just.
How do you get? The trucks, how do you, they're going to be specified, they can only use certain driveways when they come in and out?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. The numbers you use for your traffic study, they were not done by you, correct?
Correct.
So you're just basing all your numbers off of hopefully that other company did the numbers correctly?
I'm basing my numbers on the professionalism of McDonough Ray Associates.
Okay. So you're staking your name to their numbers?
Yes.
Okay. And have you ever had any problems where numbers have been wrong and they've come back differently?
I have never had any cause to doubt the,
No, I said, have you ever, personally, on any of your cases, has the numbers ever changed from when you first did it till after it was done?
I'm not sure I understand the question.
When you first did your testimony, has numbers ever turned out differently after a complex was built?
Not that I'm aware of.
Not that you're aware of. So you don't look back, once you're done with this, you have no further,
We design the site, we design the improvements, and then if necessary, we stand by the design that we do.
okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Sir?
I think you should also mention.
Hello, my name's Ron Springer. I live at 494 Lakewood Farmingdale Road.
Can you just spell your
my
name for us,
house-
sir?
I'm sorry?
Just spell your name for the record.
Spell it. Ronald, R-O-N-A-L-D, Springer, S-P-R-I-N-G-E-R. I live right now at Bear Creek Herbery. I'm about 500 feet from the intersection of Herbistville Road and 547. And I was just wanted to ask the traffic expert, are you aware of how far backed up the traffic is in peak hours on 547 at the Herbistville Road light?
Yes, yes, I am.
In my experience, it's exceeded the light at Soldier Field. Is that correct?
I can't speak to that. I can tell you that there are congestion issues at that intersection.
So I'm trying to visualize on a day where perhaps the traffic is backed up to that, and you have maybe 1 or 2 tractor trailers backed up in traffic, and you have kids, thousands of kids playing soccer on both sides of the road. wouldn't you think crossing would be a bit of a dangerous situation?
Well, I would hope they would cross at the light.
Yeah, but I'm saying if it's backed up and people are stopped,
I would
you don't-
anticipate the vehicles will be following the traffic laws and stop at the indicated places.
Okay, well, we spent about a half an hour listening to your statistics and all of the algorithms and different equations you guys use for traffic, and I don't understand much of any of it. My wife actually took the time to record the video traffic heading northbound in the morning hours, peak hours, and southbound at the evening peak hours, and I put that on a thumb drive. Would you guys object to showing that? It takes 2 minutes.
No, sir, I mean, you have time to do that when it's time to testify.
Okay.
But now it's time to ask about, the testimony he gave tonight. But certainly, when we open it to the public, whatever exhibits you want to submit, you'll have an opportunity to do that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else from the public? Questions only? Seeing none, close this portion.
Is there one more?
Oh,
One more.
I'll pull it back up.
I almost made it.
Kristen Burke, Kristen Burke, Burke, and I live at 14 East Shenandoah Road in Howell. in
Just,
Park
ma'am, if you
Drive.
could just get a little closer to the mic.
Oh, sorry. My question is, what are you going to do to,
You can pull that closer to you. There you go. Yeah,
what are
talk
you
right
going to
into
do to fix all the roads?
As we testified to, we are proposing improvements along our frontages, both along Randolph Road and along Oak Glen Road. We are also, based on the requirements of the county, going to be improving the intersection of Randolph Road and County Route 547.
Because right now, all the roads, like Randolph Road, Allenwood Lakewood Road, all those roads are so narrow and clearly not made to handle what you are
Yeah.
talking about putting in. And the traffic that you're putting in, the roads are dangerous and narrow back there.
This is questions only for
So
the
what
testimony
about
this evening.
Allenwood Lakewood Road? Are you proposed to do any repairs or fixing those roads as well?
No, we are not sending a large portion of our traffic that direction, and so we are proposing the improvements that's been identified in the report.
And you don't think that after people are there, like the 700 spots that you say for employees or whatever that are going to be there, you don't think that eventually they're going to learn the roads and start using Allenwood Lakewood and other roads around there and putting more traffic on those roads and causing more congestion, more problems? We already have an intersection.
Well, ma'am, you've asked the question, so
Okay, I'm
let,
going to ask one more question.
well,
now.
let's let him ask the question, answer the question you did ask.
I think we've identified the intersections of study in excess of what's actually necessary for permitted use within the zone. And we've identified improvements that go along with that. So I think we've identified what we need to identify.
Okay, I'm not sure that you've taken everything into consideration and all the residents that are along these roads that you're going to affect by putting all this extra traffic in there, especially down by Park.
Ma'am,
Questions
you have to
only,
ask a
please.
question.
Okay, all right, and that's it. I'm done.
Okay.
Thank you.
You almost got out.
Name is John McNulty, McNulty, 4 and 12 Harnell Boulevard, Howell. My question is, do you have any form of failure mode analysis in your study? In other words, do you look into the probability of having a problem like these people are just talking about? And what are those, how do you analyze that, where a truck driver decides to do something else to go across the line, or there are people coming up taking shortcuts, drivers or whatever? What do you do to be able to use that? In an engineering form, you would probably look at the product and look at what failed after the fact. But how do you do that with you, or what's the analogous in your studies?
So we analyze the existing operation of the surrounding intersections within the study area from an existing, a no-build, which is what it would grow to the year where the facility would open, and then a build analysis. And we do a before and after comparison, and where there are deficiencies identified, we suggest and recommend improvements. In this instance, I think we've gone above and beyond what's required in some of the improvements at the behest of the township, including the widening of Oak Glen Road. So I think what we've identified is mitigating measures of the project at these study locations.
Okay, then with your current analysis and your current suggestion, your current design, what's the probability it's going to work?
I would say 100%.
100%?
I'm confident in my design. Yes.
I'll ask him more questions next time we have an open forum, I guess.
Thank you. Any other questions from the public?
Nelson Santos, Santos, 768 Auckland Road. My question is, after this is done, if, like, imagine it's going to be a cows on 547, who's going to fix that road?
Who's going to what?
Who's going to fix 547? If it's going to be a cows, the road is going to be damaged, and there's no way all that traffic, with the traffic we already have, who's going to take care of that?
So County Route 547 is a county facility under county jurisdiction.
Oh, okay, then they got to pay for it.
This application is under review by the county currently, and any improvements they recommend or require as part of that approval will be accommodated.
All right, that was my question.
Thank you.
Laurie, Laurie, Oyster, Oister.
And your address?
48 Danella Way. Howell. So I have a question. You said there's going to be 3 entrances into 9 warehouses.
There are a number of entrances and exits that we proposed. Originally, the project had proposed all 5 of them being entrances and exits. We've now reduced some of them to enter only and some of them to exit only.
Okay, so these companies that are going to come into the 9 warehouses, the trucks coming in are going to know what driveway they have to go into.
That's correct.
So what happens if they get backed up? Say we have a snowstorm. They don't open for a day. So now they are all behind. 9 warehouses all behind on their shipping. What happens when those trucks get there and they're waiting to get to the dock because now they're all backed up? Is there a shoulder on Randolph Road?
No, but we actually provide ample parking in the interior of the site for tractors,
Board
trailers.
trucks.
Yes, absolutely.
So at no time, you don't anticipate any of these tractor trailers backing up onto Randolph Road with no shoulder at any point in time?
No, I do not. To go into that a little further, though, along our entire frontage, there will be a shoulder. One of the requirements of the township was to widen our...
But you're not allowed to park in that shoulder.
I understand that, but we are providing a shoulder, and no, I do not anticipate that they will be parked on Randolph Road during any type of weather emergency.
So in every supply chain organization, you think it works perfectly that they're on time every single time?
That's not what I said.
Okay, so my next question, is there going to be any sort of automated snow removal system for these trucks going in and out of the building? Or all these 9 warehouses so that all that ice and snow that's on top of these trucks doesn't end up on Randolph Road or Oak Glen Road? Is there any capital being spent by any of these 9 warehouses to do so?
I'm not the right person.
Yeah, I don't think you're asking that to the right person.
Okay, then those are my questions.
Thank you. Anyone else? Going once, twice? All right, going to close this portion of the meeting.
Okay, council, I think you had some odds and ends you wanted to address, not necessarily related to the traffic testimony tonight. And actually, I think if I could just begin, there was one issue, Mr. Chairman, that was raised by counsel for the objectors earlier on concerning a possible non-compliance with certain environmental testing on the property.
Yeah.
The applicant did provide, or did highlight what had been provided, and the board's engineer did submit a supplemental letter which found that they did comply with all testing requirements. I did speak to counsel for the objector who withdrew the objection, but I would just ask tonight that that be confirmed so that that's no longer an issue before the board.
I'll be honest with you, I can't confirm that. I mean, I did not speak to my colleague about that.
All right,
so-
well, all right, so I spoke to Mr. Bossum about it, so at the next meeting, if someone could just be prepared to address that.
I think he put that on the record already.
Did he? Okay.
I will try to find that, but I do think he actually, I think he indicated that he was satisfied with that.
All right, so we'll resolve it one way or the other.
At the next meeting.
All right. Anything else, counsel?
Well, I did want to point out with regard to the concern about the accessibility for fire trucks, we did have a Howell Township Fire Bureau site plan review letter back in March, which we had complied with, and I think a letter from December, which we received from the chief saying that they had no new or additional comments based on any information they received subsequently, and they indicated that that the 30-foot wide would accommodate the fire apparatus movement and placement. So I believe we've complied with the comments from them, so that should hopefully address some of those concerns. We've seen other review letters.
Just please keep your comments to yourself, please.
There's going to be, just for members of the public, there's going to be an opportunity after the completion of testimony and cross-examination. Every interested party is going to have an opportunity to come up. You'll be sworn in, and you can comment upon whatever you wish, place your support or objection to the application on the record, but we can't do it now. We're under very specific rules under the municipal land use law as to who can speak, when they can speak. So there's going to be every opportunity to register your objection or support, but right now, the law requires us to listen to the applicant's attorney.
Thank you. And those letters, of course, I understand are part of the record once they are
Yes.
received by the board. Also, I just wanted to point out that we received a letter today from Brick Utilities, and as I said, we saw it today. We're not sure why the sewer purveyor has a number of comments with regard to stormwater, but we will, look at those comments, but we believe that we have satisfied the stormwater requirements. We presented that testimony early on through our civil engineer, and our design is designed to comply with, obviously, Howell's requirements, but also DEP requirements to the extent that they're the ones with jurisdiction over stormwater and any permitting that's needed in that regard. I don't know there have been a number of outside agency or your agency comments which we believe that our testimony and the documents have dealt with. And obviously, if there are more questions of us, I do want to reiterate what we said previously, which is, although the driveways currently, and the testimony is that they are designed safely and in accordance with what we've been told are the applicable limitations, our offer or comment remains that we would be willing to widen the width of all or any of the driveways beyond the 30 feet, which we do think is contemplated by the ordinance, and which is what our original design, I believe, proposed. We are now at the width that we were told to hold it to, but again, if there is any thought that that should be widened from the board or their consultants, we're certainly willing to make a modification to accommodate that as a condition of approval if granted, or however the board wants to see that. I think that's what we have at the moment. Obviously, we would like the opportunity if there is new testimony put in that we feel we need to respond to after the comments, and also requesting the right to to present a summation.
Mr. Chairman, I think where we are in the hearing process now is basically with regard to testimony from the applicant or the objector's professionals and cross-examination, we're left essentially with Exhibit A36, which was submitted tonight, which the applicant, as I said, under Section 10B of the Municipal Land Use Law had every right to do. However, it did present, there was a proffer that the turning radius was now such that large vehicles could turn into the site without crossing over the line because there was restriping. There's not an opportunity tonight for the applicant, or I'm sorry, for the objector or his professional to, or for the board's traffic engineer, for that matter, to confirm or to refute that. So where we are is, I think we need to carry the meeting we have a meeting set up for the 30th of this month. And with regard to what we will do there is Mr. Taylor will be subject to cross-examination on the very, very limited, narrow scope of Exhibit A36, and more particularly the turning radii that are depicted there. If the objector wishes, to put his expert back on, he can do that, but then, that would be subject to cross-examination as well. Once that issue is done, the proofs are finished. There's no more testimony from professionals or anything, so what we would do is we would open it to the public for testimony. This is not asking questions, but this is why you like or dislike, why you think certain professionals should or should not be believed, and all of that. And then once the public is finished, there's an opportunity for summation for counsel for the objector and counsel for the applicant, and then the board would deliberate and vote. So I think, understanding what's left, I think we can probably finish on the 30th, because there's almost no testimony left, and I think we'll spend most of the night listening to interested parties testify and listening to the summation.
Agreed.
So, either counsel, do you have any objections to that? Okay. Just closer to the mic.
Sorry. There are new board members. Is it anticipated that they will be participating by reviewing the many?
The new board members will make every effort to make themselves eligible. Some are alternates, so they may not be voting anyway, depending on how many people show up. But, certainly, best efforts will be made. Okay, so with that, Mr. Chairman, the application of Monmouth Commerce Center LLC, case number SP-1052, and Eileen, it is the 30th, correct?
The 30th.
Okay, will be carried to the board's January 30th, 2020 meeting, beginning 7 o'clock here at Town Hall. There'll be no further notice to property owners. To members of the public, anybody who wants to take a look at the file, it's available during normal business hours. You can stop by Eileen's office or give her a call to make an appointment. And that's it, Mr. Chair.
Ron, any reason to go into executive session?
Before we do, Ms. Goncher, would you grant the board?
Please keep it down until the meeting's over.
Through the 30th.
Thank you.
Did you
Okay.
get that on the, sorry, an extension through the 30th. I didn't know.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Chairman, no, there's no reason to go into executive session
Okay,
tonight.
do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.